Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Unspoken Truths of Digital Leadership, Living the Leadership Values, where our guests will talk about the unspoken truths of leadership, the dark side, and the learnings from dealing with conflict with integrity. And today, I have the pleasure to introduce you Arlene Cogen. Thank you for coming.
It is such a pleasure to be here on your show and with your audience today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Arlene. I know we've got similar interest in non-profit organizations, but also in Toastmasters as well.
Yes, it's a small world. The farther you go, the smaller it gets.
I love it. So, Eileen, let's dive straight into what is it that you do, and why you're here, right? Because I know you reached out because you was in the leadership positions. So let's tell us about what you do.
So, what I do is I help people integrate philanthropy into their personal and financial plans so they have more effective and fulfilling outcomes in their life. It's that simple.
So, what happens when they add philanthropy into their plan or into their lifestyles?
Right. So, let's take a step back.
Hmm.
First of all, most people don't think they can be a philanthropist.
Mm-hmm.
Philanthropist, that term has been hijacked by the millionaires and billionaires. When we really look at the definition of philanthropy, Jonna, we can say that it is the love of humankind. It doesn't have to be millions of dollars going to a nonprofit. It can be small acts of generosity and kindness that also mean philanthropy. So when we look at people, they have so many roadblocks to get to philanthropy. I'm not a millionaire. I don't know how to give. Here's one that I heard so many times at the Community Foundation. Charity begins at home, right? Charity begins at home. If I can't help my family, who can I help? And they're absolutely right. Charity does begin at home, but it doesn't end there. So what I do is I look to switch that conversation and mindset so people understand that they can include philanthropy in their lives. And what it provides to them, first and foremost, is happiness. Philanthropy provides happiness. And there was a huge research study done through Harvard, which I'd love to tell you about. Are you interested?
Go for it.
Great. So Michael Norton, who's an associate business professor at Harvard, teamed up with Elizabeth Dunn at the University of British Columbia. And they did a study where they got a whole bunch of recruits and they gave them either $5 or $20 in the envelope and basically asked them, at the end of the day, we want to call you and see how you're feeling. In the envelopes, it said either go spend the money on yourself or go spend it on someone else. And it didn't matter whether it was the $5 or the $20. At the end of the day, when they spoke to these participants, those who gave the money to someone else, who helped someone else with a cup of coffee, felt really great and energized, and it provided happiness. And the Pew Foundation did a study that incorporated a similar question about charitable giving internationally. And internationally, the data is the same. When you help others, when you're giving to others and causes you care about, you are happier. So happiness is the biggest thing that charity provides. Another thing it provides is it provides solutions to everyday problems. And you say, what's an everyday problem? Well, I'm sure all of your audience members can think of everyday problems. I have a child who failed to launch that I need to take care of. I have a sick loved one. It takes care of financial problems too. I have a tax issue. I'm selling a business. So when you integrate philanthropy, different philanthropic tools can either help you provide an income stream to that child or loved one, or help reduce and eliminate taxes at the same time. And once again, it makes you happy.
I love that. Is that because what I suppose that what I talk about as well is the inner leadership of leading your own home first is leading yourself first, which means your own happiness first.
I like that a lot. And when you talk about leadership and family life, philanthropy is an amazing way to create little leaders and teach values and life lessons to your children and your family. And I have so many lovely stories of raising my own daughters to teach them how important philanthropy is in their life. And they have just blossomed because of that. And they are themselves are little leaders in the community.
That's fantastic. Well, the thing is, when you're creating leaders, you're creating the next generation of leaders, aren't you? In your philanthropy work as well as your own happiness at home. So that's how I've always seen it anyway. And if we can't give ourselves happiness first, how can we give happiness to the people around us, to our children, to our partners, to people we work with, you know? And that's how I always see the
Yes,
inner
that
leadership.
is, yeah. Yes, leadership always has to start from within. You can't, it goes back to the same things, and this is why we're connected, right? We have such like-minded thoughts. I need to take care of myself and my family before I can take care of other people. We're on the airplane, and what do they instruct us to do? When the oxygen mask drops, put it on yourself and then help the others next to you. So leadership does have a lot to do with your own personal satisfaction and growth in filling and giving to others. I'm a John Maxwell trained coach and leader, and he has so many great examples and lessons on, giving in
Hmm.
order to receive. And it's true.
I've been inspired by John many times. I think one of my first, probably it wasn't even a book. It was probably an article that I got inspired, or a talk that he gave on stage, and I was just blown away the way that he gives and the way he leads. It's just incredible to see. So it's inspired me to step up my journey. When you talk about non-charity organizations, there was also last year I became a board trustee for two charity organizations. One for children in play, so creating leaders of the future is how I see it for that one. And another one was a drug and addiction um, rehab charity, but they've also launched into helping rough sleepers with accommodation. Um, so that's another charity, and yeah, I've been toying around with trying to give back in because time was limited for me. But the other best way of doing it was become a board trustee and do it strategically on a board level. Especially with the experience that I've accumulated over the years, I felt that was the best way of giving back. Um, it's changed my life in terms of my fulfillment and what I'm developing. So I could see where you're talking about when you say philanthropy doesn't have to start, big things. Doesn't have to be thousands of pounds and millions of dollars. It's just little things they could give back in the community. So I really resonate with that.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you're investing in children and our youth, because they are our future, and one day, you know, they're going to be in charge. So we better start helping them get to that path now. And when we start talking about philanthropy and engaging children in philanthropy, you can start when they're literally babies. One of the things that I did with my children, and this is because I don't like clutter. You could probably tell by the back of my office.
It's
I
very
like things
tiny.
to be neat. And if you have I have two daughters and they're 16 months apart. So they played with everything jointly. But for their birthdays and for Hanukkah, before they would get new gifts, I taught them philanthropy and charity. And I would take a bag, a brown paper bag, and put it in the middle of their bedroom and say, before you can get birthday gifts or Hanukkah gifts, you need to fill up this bag with the things you're finished with and that you're not going to use anymore, so you can give it to less fortunate people. So you have to make room for new stuff. And the first time I did that, it took a month. Because I would hold up an item, do you want this? And one would say yes, and the other would say no. So it couldn't go in the bag. They both had to agree. But it instilled in them patterns when they were little, that now there's always a bag by the garage door that is going to charity or to someone else, because they got used to the habit of, before any big celebration where they were going to get something new, they had to give to others first to make room for new. And then as they got older and they had birthdays, instead of getting birthday gifts, they encouraged their friends to make donations to the animal shelter and other organizations like the zoo. So they were really learning philanthropy and giving also as a way to declutter and make other people feel good. So it was a wonderful lesson that just getting rid of clothes and or toys and having children participate is teaching them leadership skills of, what do I like? What don't I like? How do we move forward in a direction so we can get more of what we want?
I'm literally blown away by that. I was like, wow, you can do that? I don't see, now that makes more sense. I was like, wow, you can teach that kind of behavior. Something for me to take in later in the future as well, maybe. Adapt it in my own life. So does that mean that they've also learned how to be detached from material things?
Well,
Or less of it?
I would say they are, don't get me wrong, I have a 21 and a 22-year-old daughter, and they love their clothes and they love jewelry, and they also put into perspective, reduce, reuse, recycle.
Mm-hmm.
My youngest loves fashion, and she'll go to the thrift store, buy something and totally recreate it, and she feels so much better about that than buying new stuff. So they're still materialistic, but because of their age and their interest in the environment and sustainability, they are finding ways to access clothes and jewelry in ways that are fulfilling to them. So they're still materialistic, but they're doing it with a philanthropic lens of reduce, reuse, recycle.
But less emotional attachment to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's things that we don't talk about is the emotional attachment to material things, like chasing the new latest phone or something like that.
Well,
like
and
every year, right?
Right. And my oldest, who's a communications major, she just graduated from Portland State University in communications. And she is not a big fan of social media. She feels it is too distracting and does a lot of harm for people her age. So it's really interesting, her thought process around leadership and a communications focus, but certainly not detached to detached to more material things than most kids, but certainly very fortunate and grateful for all they have.
That's amazing. So during your journey of teaching people philanthropy, when you're working with CEOs and directors and people like that, incorporating the lifestyle, is it a big change for them if they've never opened up that side of them?
What do you mean by big change?
Well, if they don't, I mean, not everyone is big givers, I suppose.
Correct.
So was it a big change for them internally that they had conflicts with how to deal with their inner behaviors, behaviors that they probably were never taught philanthropy and giving, and adapted that into their lifestyle. Maybe because their childhood or the way they were raised, they were never taught that way, so they don't know or understand the fulfillment factor and also
Right.
the benefits of that all. So
Yeah.
did you have conflicts working with people, or did they have conflicts trying to incorporate philanthropy into their lifestyles?
You know, what I've created, the Give to Live Now process, really walks people through every step of creating a philanthropic plan and fills in all the holes of, you know, what do you need to know about your personal goals and your financial goals? And then let's create this vision of the philanthropist you want to be. So they're big changes, but it's done in a gradual process that's, I like to call it fun. And fun I use as an acronym for flow, unique, and natural. That the flow of your energy and your money is unique to you, and that it's a natural process that you want to give and make a difference in the world. So I really look at philanthropy and integrating philanthropy as a fun process. And yes, for many high achieving individuals, I would say it's a big shift for them. But once they see the shift of making a difference, I think many embrace it more than they ever imagined they would, because they can make such a dramatic impact. And it is a leadership impact, you know, whether you be making a gift or sitting on a board, that's a leadership impact. You're leading by example. You're setting a platform for other people to follow. It's a wonderful thing. And I would say, yeah, it can be a challenge for most people, but by the time they usually get to me from their advisors, they're really ready to embrace that. Well, what's next? If I do sell my business, I have nothing to spend my time with. Heck, what am I going to do? Well, let's focus that energy on, like you, is it helping children or people with substance abuses? I mean, everywhere you look, there is loss. So it could be anything you focus on that needs help in this world right now. Social injustices, our education system, healthcare, the list goes on and on and on. So people embrace it. I think once they have really given and they get that satisfaction, they want to share it with others.
That really resonates. I love the natural process you go through, because it doesn't cause conflict.
Right.
And
It, it, it shouldn't. I like to look at planning kind of in a comprehensive way. You have your personal goals, your financial goals, and then your charitable goals. And when you really incorporate that together in your financial plan, you've incorporated your mind, body, and spirit. So the whole plan becomes more personally fulfilling and natural, and you're not forcing anything, because they're all aligned and working together to achieve your ultimate goal, whatever that looks like to you.
creating the ultimate end result. How did you get into the philanthropy field? Did you always start off this way, or was there something what was your kind of career background in that? I'm curious.
I have a very interesting journey. I started off as a photography major in school because I loved the environment. And quite honestly, I didn't have to write anything, any paragraph on my college application. I just submitted pictures. And halfway through my degree, I realized I liked photography more as a hobby. So I switched to business. And when I finished business, I went to go work for a bank. I was always good with numbers. and I got involved in banking and financial services and loved it, succeeded, worked on Wall Street, worked for the big banks back in the 80s and helped people grow their money and preserve their money. And I had 2 daughters. And while Wall Street was great, it was also during the 80s where there was sexual harassment, the glass ceiling, and wage discrimination. Not that that's changed, it's modified a little bit. But I thought as a working woman having 2 daughters, I wanted my girls to know, I wanted to lead by example so they knew that they could get a job that they loved and get paid well. So when I moved from the East Coast to Oregon, which is where I am now, I saw a career coach, right? It's like, if I'm not going to work for a bank and deal with all this stuff, what am I going to do? I had no idea. And during that process, everything came up, philanthropy and benevolence. And I looked at my career coach and I said, how do you make money at that? Because let's be honest, working on Wall Street, I was making a lot of good money. And to me, everything I knew about philanthropy was you loved what you did and you didn't get paid very much. At that point, I went right back into banking and I decided, what does philanthropy look like? And it took me 5 years to find a position with the Oregon Community Foundation, which happens to be the 6th largest community foundation in the country. And I worked primarily with advisors, helping them educate their clients on how to give. So all the estate planning attorneys, financial advisors, CPAs, insurance people who had a client who was charitably oriented, they would send them to me for an education. And I was bringing in 30 to 40% of all the giving statewide. And I loved it. And it was limited. It was just in Oregon. So, here I went from this Wall Street path, see a career coach, and it's like, you have to get involved in nonprofit. This is your calling. And I did. And I spent 9 years with the 6th largest community foundation in the country. It was a dream job. And I loved it. But just to finish that story, I still wanted to make money. And it finally occurred to me that the best way to make money was to take this gift of breaking giving down into understandable pieces and educating not just individuals, but also advisors how to integrate philanthropy into their practices to build deeper relationships with their clients and engage the next generation. That I needed to go out on my own and do it, be a consultant, write a book. So ultimately, that's what I did. I took that leap of faith and took all this skills and knowledge from, 20 years in the trust and investment world and 9 years in nonprofit and put it together and became a, speaker, author, trainer. And now, instead of just focusing on Oregon, I get to help change the world because here I am with you on the other side of the pond, right?
That's fantastic.
How awesome is that?
It is awesome, and it's great to have you on here as well. How was the journey for you training to become a speaker, an author, trainer?
I have to say, I grew up with a mindset from my mother. Her famous saying was always be learning. Mm-hmm. So I've always put myself in situations where I can learn and develop myself personally. So for speaking, I obviously became a Toastmaster, right? Toastmasters teaches you how to speak well. And I also became involved in the National Speakers Association, which teaches you the business of speaking. So those are just a few examples of my constant desire to learn and grow. And there are many others, but if you're not learning, you're dying. So let's
Yes.
keep learning and changing the world to make it a better place.
Did you have a lot of inner conflicts when it came to being uncomfortable with new situations? How did you manage that?
You know, I'm an introvert, which means at the end of the day, I come home, I put on my pajamas, you're raising your hand. I don't talk to anyone, I don't answer my cell phone. Uh, so, learning has been training myself to be in uncomfortable situations. And now I'm at the point where I pretty much know I don't feel that discomfort, but along the way, I practice, and practice more because I want to show up and be in the top, 10, 20% when I get up there on stage and talk and do whatever I do. And, you know, I became a bestseller because I am driven and I am willing to do the work to overcome it, no matter how awkward it is. And you can't take that feedback personally. So a lot of it is just, listening, processing, and letting yourself feel what you're going to feel and doing it anyway, right? Setting your mind here and then just take the actions and to succeed.
Ah, it's like a breath of fresh air just seeing you do what you do because it, it makes my journey feel like it's worth it, that I'm on the right path as well.
You
Because
are.
it's so not easy to, like, you just being an introvert and someone that's just shy away from wanting to be uncomfortable, and challenging myself constantly is such a, I think for us, because we are from that um, background, challenging ourselves constantly and practicing. No one sees that kind of work that we go through behind the scenes, which is what this podcast is about. The unspoken truths of dealing with the stress, the tension, the times when we're feeling sick behind the scenes before we get on stage to present and to speak and to train. The amount of those kind of situations that we don't talk about. But
Yeah.
it doesn't mean it doesn't happen, right?
Oh my God. My book is the perfect example of not seeing what goes on behind the scenes to get where you want to go. Two book coaches and a book strategist, and this is actually my second book. The first one never came to print. Thank you. Um, but I had the goal of making giving accessible to everyone and putting it in a book format. And since I didn't write, I wasn't a typer, I hired a coach. And the coach interviewed me, and we would have the tapes transcribed, and then we'd move it around. And I had a whole book completed, and I found my book strategist. And within the first 15 minutes of our conversation, she was like, wrong audience, wrong book. I had designed my book for professional advisors. And she recommended that I write it for the advisor's clients, for people like you and me to pick up. And so I had to rewrite the whole book, and I hired a new book coach to reframe the mind. And I sat in this office. It literally took me 6 years conceptually to make the book, probably a good year to write the book, and then all the ancillary stuff along with it is probably another 6 months. So it was a long process and journey, and well worth it. But while the outside people might not see that, I know that my daughters did. And that's a huge part for me personally, is to lead by example. And they know they always have to be learning. They always have to be challenging themselves. And they're both introverts, and yet they still are moving forward and taking leadership roles. So I know I'm doing a good job. And when I get to share those stories on podcasts like yours, it allows the rest of the world to say that, yeah, that hard work is really, 20 plus years. Well, now it's 30 years between my investment work and my nonprofit work. Over 30 years of putting one foot in front of the other for years. Doesn't happen overnight.
Which is why everyone keeps thinking there's an overnight success when they don't see the 30 years of hard work and development that went into it.
Yeah. And it is 30 years of hard work, and it never stops, right? But as the world changes, we change, and there's all these new platforms we have to become familiar with to get our message out. So we are always going to be learning, because who knows what's happening next, but people still want to give, people still want to have an impact in the world. And without people like us sharing with the world, it's not going to happen.
Let me ask you this one. What got you into giving to others?
It was really through the process of the career coach. It was analyzing all my prior jobs, what I did, what I liked, what I didn't do. I did a whole bunch of those, like Myers-Briggs and DISC tests and all those things. I still have them in my closet, in one of those shelves up there, one of those drawers. And just based on looking at values and doing all those assessments, philanthropy and benevolence rose to the top. Something I never thought would resonate with me. My father was a small business owner. My mother was a legal secretary. It was not, they were philanthropists. My father always gave and my mother always gave, but how it resonated when I went through the process of a career coach was a very different model, which showed me that I actually could make money and have a career in something that resonated so deeply with my heart. And I don't think without a career coach, I would have ever gone to work at the Community Foundation or written a book. So the career coach really helped me shift my perspective on what's possible.
Wow, that's really powerful. What was it like for you when you started giving to others?
I remember my mother, when I was a young girl, she would deliver Meals on Wheels to elderly people. And perhaps for some of those people, we were the only person they saw that day or that week. Mm-hmm. And I remember feeling completely uncomfortable, and they'd grab my cheeks, oh, you're so young. And having a conversation with my mother about how important it was to give. And the examples both my parents led makes me want to give bigger and more each time. And when my father passed away probably about 20 years ago, and my mother passed away 9 years ago, and having seen so many people my mother was one of those people who waited pretty much to the end of her life to make her biggest gifts, which is typical because most people need their money to live on during their life and can't make a significant gift during their life. When she passed away, one of the things I promised her that we'd do with the inheritance was to create a donor-advised fund at the Community Foundation. And for those who aren't familiar with donor-advised funds, they're mini private foundations where you have all the fun of philanthropy without any of the headache of the administration. And I was able to create a donor-advised fund with my husband and children that I never imagined I would make during my life. But I was so inspired because watching my mother at the end of her life increase her charitable giving from 5% to 10% was like watching a kid in a candy store. And I was like, heck, I don't want to wait till the end of my life. I want to have that joy now. And I can afford to have it now. And it is one of the most rewarding things that each year our family sits down and we have a discussion on where do we want our distributions to go this year. And it just, when you help others, you're feeding your soul. And it's the most rewarding feeling you can. And helping others make gifts they never imagined is like even better than making my own gifts sometimes, because they have a lot more money than I do. You know, when I was at the Community Foundation, I brought in over $90 million of current funds to make a difference. And the joy and reward that feels is, I can't even explain it to you, except I feel like my heart is swelling, and the good Yiddish term is gvelling. My heart is bursting with joy and energy when I give and when I help people give. And when people give and they have that joy, there's nothing better in the whole wide world.
I fully agree. It's why I do what I do as well, in terms of digital leadership and creating and helping better leaders, because they would create and make more ripple across the world and more people.
Exactly. And whether it be a volunteer of your time on a board, or a cash donation, or donating property, it all resonates in your heart and your soul. And that's why I say comprehensive planning is your mind, body, and spirit.
I love that. That's amazing. So let's talk about your book. How did that come to fruition? I mean, that is 30 years of work. Well, it is, your life. I always say, a book is always someone's life journey, and everyone's got a book in them. But some people may disagree with that. But I believe everyone has a story to tell, or something to write about, to give back to the world in a book format.
Hold on, someone just rang the door. You might have to edit this out. My dog might bark in a second. Mitch, Mango.
That's okay. It's fine. Don't worry about it. This is normal life.
Yeah, I'm just shutting the door. The book is really, I agree with you. It is a piece of my heart and soul in my journey. And what I love about the book is how user-friendly it is. After my story, I really just break down what are the terms of giving. How do you give during your life? How do you give through your estate plan? Because people just don't know. And where their advisors may want to spend time with them, the estate planning attorney or CPA, they truly don't have the time to dig deep into your values and the causes near and dear to your heart. So I really break down all the giving in the front of the book. And then in the middle of the book, I share stories of incredible people I had the honor of working with to help them create gifts they never imagined. So you could go to a chapter and it'll be like single, divorced, dual income, no children, multi-generational family, and you can hop right to that chapter and see what some real donors did to solve their personal or financial situation with a charitable twist to it. So it empowers you. You could either go straight to your section, but there's lots of great lessons using trusts or outright gifts or gifts through your estate plan to accomplish all your goals. But the fun part about it is after each story, you get a personal reflection area where you get to start to create your own philanthropic plan. What are the core values near and dear to your heart? So, and that's really what Give to Live plan is all about, is creating your own philanthropic plan that ties in your values, the causes near and dear to your heart, as well as your personal and financial goals. At the end of the book, it tells you how to find and work with a good advisor who's going to help you. So this gives you all the tools to get started on a philanthropic plan. But as a financial planner, heck, you better be getting all your advisors on board to help you draft the right documents, make the correct asset gift so you get the best tax advantages. I mean, there's a lot of nuances here, to bring it together, but it's an amazing tool. And what I love about it is how accessible people say it is. And that's me. I want you to understand it so you can implement it. It was a huge process. And I thank my coaches and my book strategist for helping me pull this amazing book together. Couldn't have done it without them, that's for sure.
Absolutely. We can never, we're never alone on this journey. We always have to surround ourselves with support and structure and people that lifts us higher.
Yeah, one of the key things that's important to note is I've also taken some of the reflections and I've made a personal giving and reflection guide that any of your viewers who want, they can go join my Give to Live Now Facebook group, and you'll find this exercise on it, and it helps you clarify where you've given, how you've given, whether it's time or money, how you feel about your giving, and start to create that vision. Like, who is the philanthropist I want to be? Because that reflection and goal is the most critical part when you're taking on any endeavor, right? Like a book or the podcast. What do I need to learn? Where am I coming from? What do I want to create? So I take this and I give it to people for free to get them excited. And I have some other bonuses in there as well, like all that jargony language that people are like, what does that mean? How many words for a grantor are there? Grantor, settler, trust maker.
I think they all mean different things over this side. I don't even know what to call them over here in the UK.
A lot of them are similar, trustee, a fiduciary, they're similar, and they're all similar but different. So people need to know that so they can make informed decisions and take their giving to the next level.
Very important. I'm so blown away by what you've accomplished and what you do. I'm lost.
Wow. Well, you know what?
It's given me food for thought in terms of what I'm looking to create in my legacy and what I'm creating. I suppose the foundations I'm laying behind and laying down in order to create. But I've always this resonated with, I guess, Tony Robbins when he said, model success.
Yes.
If there's someone that you want to be or somewhere you want to go, but look at what they've done and follow and build your own steps towards it, because you can always model and there's always a blueprint behind what they've done. There's a pattern, but you need to create that path for you, obviously, because everyone's different. You can't just follow these 7 steps to success, whatever it is, but you have to create those foundations first and climb up in your own time.
Exactly. And this reflection guide is certainly one of the foundations pieces that we work through in my Give to Live Now program, so you can create the philanthropic plan you never imagined.
Amazing. So if people want to connect with you, would they just go to your Give to Live website, or where can they find you?
You can find me at arlenecogen.com, ARLENECOG, E as in Edward N. I'm on Facebook at Arlene Cogen, Twitter, Insta, Arlene Cogen. Hashtag give to live.
I'll make sure to put all the links in the show notes as well. Just so
I appreciate that. And I welcome all of your viewers to come check out my Give to Live Now page and get some free resources so they can start their philanthropic plan.
Well, I think the first ever time I heard this phrase from Tony Robbins, I think was probably about 7 years ago for me, was the secret to living is giving. And
I love that.
That, for me, was my biggest takeaway since I started with Tony Robbins with Unleash the Power Within, and that was literally the last thing he said on stage, and that just resonated so much with me, because there was just huge 20 odd years of my life where I was not giving, and I was so unfulfilled. I was so unhappy with myself. And once I embodied the secret to living is giving, that just changed my life. It changed the way I lead. It changed the way I speak. Changed the way I communicate. Changed the way I engage with people. Um, and that just for me was mind blowing. So I'm glad that I've managed to connect with you in terms of philanthropy as well, because I never knew that was a thing. I was like, oh, philanthropy is about millionaires and billionaires giving away money, right?
That's right.
And so I was like, oh, well, I don't have millions or billions, so I don't need to give. Does that mean I don't need to give? And no, that's not it. You can give in any different ways, small, big or small, but as long as you give, I think that's the most important part.
And that's why I want to take back philanthropists from those billionaires and bring it back to everyday people like you and I. We are philanthropists.
We just don't know it. Some of us won't know it, but once you start getting into that journey, it's so much fun. There's so much joy, just to help someone else get that process. I mean, is incredible. So I can see why you have so much fulfillment in what you do. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your journey with us, Arlene.
It has been an absolute delight, and I look forward to partnering and connecting with you in the future.
Absolutely. There'll be plenty of more opportunities, I'm sure. Thank you all for listening to another episode. So we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you.
Bye-bye.